In his review of the 1993 film Alive, which recreated the real-life events of the 72-day struggle for survival of 18 survivors after the harrowing 1972 plane crash in Uruguay, film critic Roger Ebert once wrote that there are some things that cannot be told in any way, and the story of the survivors in the Andes Mountains is one of them. 20 years after Society of the Snow, released by Netflix, achieved what the renowned critic once deemed impossible by providing the most objective view of what truly happened in the past. Without deliberately delving into gruesome details, the film quickly made headlines by successfully exploring the inner turmoil of the characters, torn between faith and doing whatever it takes to survive in the vast expanse of white snow, amidst desperation. Faced with life's greatest ordeal, whether humans shattered or persisted in the fight, these suffering individuals, whether they are still alive, are miracles or tragedies. Society of the Snow will help us find our own answers. In 1972, Flight 571 of Uruguay's national airline carried 45 passengers and crew, most of whom were members of the Christian Brothers rugby team from Stella Maris College, flying from the capital Montevideo to Santiago, Chile, for a friendly match. The beautiful outlook for the future and the lively conversation among passengers did not last long, as bad weather caused engine failure. The plane tore in half as it flew over the Andes, leaving only 28 survivors, but the tragedy had only just begun. They were stranded in a desolate valley, the white fuselage of the plane blending with the snow, making them unlocatable by rescue teams. Most of the 28 people were severely injured, enduring hunger and cold temperatures dropping to -40 degrees. In a place where no living creature could survive, they were forced to choose between starving to death or using their only source of food, waiting for the ice to melt and finding a way out of the Andes. Even though viewers knew the film was based on a true story, and the plane crash was sure to happen after witnessing it firsthand, the tragedy was still horrifying to anyone. The chaotic sounds of broken bodies, screams, and the metal tearing apart. Passengers in the rear of the plane were thrown out and died instantly. The cockpit and the communication equipment were smashed upon impact, and the upper half of the fuselage became a shelter for the survivors. As the night with bone-chilling cold set in, instant death might have seemed easier than what the 28 people had to endure for many days afterward. Surrounded by the hopeless white of the majestic nature, but white now also meant death because no animals or plants survived here. The snow desert turned into a hell. The injured died without medical treatment, the rest weakened by prolonged hunger. There were some suggestions about using the bodies of the deceased, but faced strong opposition because it was too terrifying and unethical. They were full of hope whenever they heard an airplane in the sky, creating enough distress signals, but all became almost insane when, 8 days after the accident, the radio officially announced the cessation of all search operations until spring, as the weather was too harsh and the world believed no one had survived. In the opening scene, the team members attend a ceremony at the church, where Catholic teachings have become a part of their identity. It's hard to go against their faith, so they argued between those who firmly abstained from eating to respect the deceased and the rest who faced the truth that they couldn't survive without food. The number of deaths increased after a 5-day snowstorm, causing most to lean towards an option that in normal society, no one could imagine. There was no intense arguing or bickering, yet Society of the Snow still depicted the desperation as each member was forced to choose unwanted food sources. The Stroh's brothers took responsibility for dividing the food, along with keeping secret the identities of the bodies they used, like the haunting they didn't want their friends to endure anymore. It wasn't easy to bring a story like Society of the Snow to the screen without omitting details that would make the audience curious and intrigued, like the horror of the accident or the terrifying meals. However, director Bona cleverly made all of that not the main focus of the film. The scenes of body parts were not filmed directly, but we still felt the characters' agony through their guilty tears or the mixing of snow into their food to make it easier to swallow. In this gruesome valley, despite prayers and so many crucifixes worn around their necks, no God appeared to save the unfortunate. They had to rely on each other to survive, new habits and perspectives gradually formed as a social norm within the community of survivors, where survival took precedence, as civilization seemed to have abandoned them. The Sto brothers and Roberto Canessa, 4 people with survival skills, medical knowledge, and an understanding of their dire circumstances, decided not to wait for God anymore. They became the new pillars of the group instead of Marcelo, the rugby team captain. Society of the Snow seems not to focus on the journey of any particular character but rather on how a group of people tried to unite to survive, facing the tragedy, and how they encouraged each other to ensure that at least one of them would return to tell this story. Even though Arturo knew he didn't have much longer to live, he said he had never felt so much hope before, surrounded by the paradise protected by the love of friends. They were the embodiment of God in Arturo's eyes, maintaining faith, goodness, and reason to keep moving forward. As teammates on the field, as friends in the direst circumstances, each of them sacrificed more or less for their community, trying to shed the guilt for their friends by agreeing to offer their bodies as food if they died. Be honest with yourself before watching this movie. Do you hope to see shocking images, a small, savage community devoid of humanity, like the way Stephen King depicted the chaos crowd in The Mist? Society of the Snow rises above all that when it speaks of unity, friendship, and hope in the face of extreme difficulty, allowing us to truly see ourselves in that group of young people. They still had a future ahead and didn't easily surrender to fate. They continued to use their hands, their minds to survive, feeling immense compassion for those who had passed away. Knowing happiness when surrounded by friends, even composing poetry together in the half-ruined fuselage, their new home. This is life, how very normal values are depicted truthfully on screen, touching the hearts of the audience, without the need for sensational details or anything fancy. For 10 days traversing the snow-covered mountain peaks, thanks to the unimaginable courage of Nando and Roberto, the green of life finally began to appear before them. The story could have ended, like a beautiful ending after all the efforts, but the truth is not that simple. The media quickly arrived, surrounding the exhausted young men, now emaciated, no different from dry skeletons due to malnutrition. Our heroes are so small and pitiful, the small community in the white snow now facing a big question: what should they say to the eagerly awaiting crowd? How to shed memories to integrate into civilized society? If the world knows the truth, will they be forgiven for what they have done, or will they face judgment and terror? The 16 survivors of Flight 571 are not heroes, nor are they blessed by any divine power. The accident is like the curse of fate. When it descends upon you, you will shatter and ask God, "Why me?" or will you find every way to continue to exist? Whatever the answer may be, a part of the souls of the 16 young men will forever remain in the gruesome valley covered in snow on the Andes. In the closing scene of Society of the Snow, the survivors sit together in one frame, but no longer with the happy smiles in the photo before the flight. They cannot go back to their past selves, their eyes filled with wounds after facing too much horror, which a human life can endure. Sadness and memories of the deceased will follow them for life. Those who return somehow will always be a community apart from society. Only within that circle do they truly understand and forgive each other for what happened. The rest of the world may never understand or forgive their actions, even if it was the only choice between life and death. In fact, the 16 people continued to support each other, maintaining close ties with the families of the victims, compensating for each other's losses. Despite other works being inspired by or attempting to recreate the story, the most outstanding of which is Alive in 1993, Society of the Snow is still considered the most authentic and touching film by the survivors, as it relied on the data in Paulo's 2009 book, a journalist who had close relationships with many people on the flight. He met and recorded as much evidence as possible to publish the book. Perhaps nearly 50 years had provided this book with many perspectives on the event that Alive in 1993 did not achieve. All the actors in the film are Argentine or Uruguayan. The names of the victims and their ages when they died are displayed on the screen with compassion, as their young ages demonstrate the filmmakers' respect when creating this work. Before filming, the film crew and actors conducted over 100 hours of interviews with all living witnesses and the families of the victims to gain more understanding of the characters, emotions, and their real experiences. The music, restrained, contributes to making the atmosphere even more tense because we don't know what could happen next, after the cheerful laughter of the characters. The chilling sound of the sudden snow avalanche buries everything in silence, deathly silence. Roberto Canessa, now a renowned cardiologist, said in an interview with Agence France-Presse, "We all have our own mountain ranges, and I want to tell those who are struggling up the mountains not to give up, just keep moving forward." Roberto wanted to give up when he saw the snow-capped peaks, but Nando still brimmed with hope, pointing to the distant mountain where there was no snow, encouraging his friend that it was chilly. If they had given up, there would have been no one left alive to tell the story. This disaster in the Andes is an allegory for the challenges in life. And the journey of the survivors is a message to each of us, never to surrender to adversity. Roberto shared that watching Society of the Snow was not an easy experience, as the film provides the most comprehensive view of the story and the filming location is also where the accident took place, bringing back powerful memories for him. All of that was enough for Society of the Snow to become a worthy film, receiving much praise from audiences and critics. While it's not the first time the real tragedy of Uruguay has been brought to the screen, Society of the Snow has done better than its predecessors, focusing on exploring the psychological aspects of human friendship, hope overcoming all odds. They created a small community struggling for life together. The film also leaves regret and raises many questions about the remaining life, carrying deep wounds of those who returned. It's hard to bid a complete farewell to the world of cinema in 2023 without experiencing Society of the Snow. Watch it and leave your emotions in the comments for us. And for now, goodbye and see you soon.